It's 9:32, so I'm going to open the meeting and welcome you all here to the inaugural meeting of the Council Controlled Organisations Committee for this triennium. I'm going to begin with an opening prayer before we move through into the next part of the agenda. I oha ki runga ki a ranginui, I oha ki raru ki a papatunuku, turkina ngā mea, kino ki te paetia, uia mai o korowai aroha, he taonga ma mātou, ki puta, ki te waiao, ki te o marama, haumie, huie, tāikie. I acknowledge those things above, the sky, the universe, and the heavens. I acknowledge those things below, the earth in all its entirety. Cast all negativity to the distant horizons. Cover us with the cloak of affection and love as a treasure bestowed upon us, so that we may enter into enlightenment. Let it be bound and fixed, yes fixed, let it be agreed by all. Amen. If you'd like to lead it, I'm more than happy for that to happen. Sure. Yep. I've had a Waiata requested, so let's all stand for erere. Thank you for guiding us through that, Councillors Glenda and Kate. We'll be sure to practice more in future too. All right, so we move through to the apologies. I've got an apology from Councillor Ross Fallon and Mayor Andrew Tripe, who has been called down to the opening commemorations of Pakatoi Day, so he extends his apologies for this meeting. Are there any further apologies? No? All right, can I have someone to move the apologies, please? Kate will move, Jenny will second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations? Councillor Anderson. Fantastic, and that'll be in relation to the public excluded session. Perfect. All right, we move to item number 4, the motion to exclude the public. And just before I do this, I just want to, for the benefit of the public, advise that we'll be reopening the meeting for the item on the Whanganui Partners report from about 12 o'clock. So there may be a little... yeah, it's been advised as 12 o'clock. It may be earlier. Hopefully it's earlier. But just for the benefit of the public, that's where it's been listed, or that's the time that's been listed on the agenda. So stay tuned and hopefully we'll be...
Question, Mr. Chair. Yeah, look, so just for clarification, I don't quite and it's your prerogative as a chair, so I'm not really questioning you, but just out of interest, so why don't we have the public session first?
We'll look at adjusting things as we go forward. The reason for this meeting was so that the chair of the Holdings Board was able to be here early morning and present, and then go off and do further Holdings business throughout the day. So we will look at how we can make it work so that, you know, the public aren't waiting and so on. But we just need to work in with what works for holdings as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so the recommendation is that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely items listed at page 7 of the agenda, and that Declan Millen, Chair of Whanganui Holdings, and Jeff Evans, General Manager, be permitted to remain in the meeting after the public has been excluded. I won't read the whole recommendation up there, you can see it listed, but I will move that. Can I please have a seconder? Or Philippa, you've got a question?
Yes, I'm happy to second it. And just could I ask a quick question, is just for clarity, holdings, for example, will present to us, we can ask questions, but in regard to decision making, they would be excluded from the room for any decision making?
Yes, if the preference of the committee is that they're excluded, then that's what will occur.
So do we want to discuss that now rather than when they come in and we're kind of having a bit of possibly a debate on that?
Well, we're in public at the moment, so what I'll do is just make a commitment to you that we will, as part of that item, give the holdings directors the opportunity to present their item, for us to ask questions, and that takes as long as it takes, and then I will invite the directors to leave the meeting before we get to the decision-making part.
So that, yeah, that's what we're going to do. Yeah, sure. And so probably just another question, just for a little bit of public clarity, and any decision making we make in confidence, my understanding would be at the appropriate time, or when it is appropriate, or sometimes, well, I'd not like to say that we would never release anything, but at the appropriate time, council's kind of standing orders or would be that that information is released into the public arena as and when appropriate. Could I just get clarification of this?
Yeah, I'll get the Chief Executive to provide clarity on that.
Through you, Chair. So Council has a proactive disclosures policy, so we only keep things confidential for as long as the original reason for keeping them confidential exists. As soon as that's no longer relevant, we proactively publish the minutes of the meetings where those decisions were made and what the decision was.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate that.
Follow-on question. In the past, as I recall, we used to include in minutes that exactly what the Chief Executive has just said. Do we not need that piece of the process to give you permission to release minutes publicly? Because I would have thought, as it stands, once they're public excluded, they need to stay that way until there's a resolution of the committee. Otherwise,
Yeah, so in the motion to reopen the public reopen the meeting to the public, it says that the items enclosed remain confidential until all parties have either accepted the terms of the proposals or agreed to cease negotiations, unless otherwise specified in the agenda. Then the Council and Chief Executive may then release press reports on the matter.
Perfect.
Brilliant. Thanks. All right, so you've got the recommendation up there. It's been moved by me and seconded by Councillor Philippa. Any comments? Any further comments? No. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, that's carried. We'll now wait a few
baby name. Oh, no, no.
All right, I'll reopen or reconvene the meeting. Welcome Pahia and Hannah to our new format as part of the well, not so much format, but to the new reporting structure to the CCO committee. Great to have you here, and I'll hand it over to you to present your report.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou I roto I te rā o Pākaitori, tēnei rangi waka ira e Wakanui nei a Whanganui I tō tātou Whanganui tanga nō reira. Kānui te mihi, ki tēnei rangi kānui te mihi kia tātou. Firstly, really just to acknowledge the significant day for us as a community here in Whanganui, where our people in Whanganui celebrate Whanganui tanga taking place at Pākaitori. We take the report as read. We are making the assumption that this is a normal quarterly update as we would of the full council, even though we have the subcommittee set up. You'll see from the economic overview provided in the report that Whanganui has tracked well, continued to perform well in comparison to other regional cities in close proximity to ourselves. Probably a couple of highlights just to note. We know the importance that events have for our city. Our data from both the cemetery circuit and the Friday night of Vintage Weekend certainly clearly indicate that having events here is certainly good in terms of people coming to town and visitors spending money here. We are noticing that that our consumer spend is slowly tracking in the wrong direction, and probably good indications of probably what's on the horizon with the recession that has been talked about as well. I'm going to hand over to Hannah. She's got a couple of points that she wants to just pick out of the report, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Cool, kia ora koutou. I will take the activity report as read, and then I'm sure you've got questions if there's anything specific we'll pull out of that, but obviously I've just tried to pull out some highlights from the last quarter, and you'll also see on page 12 just some of the activity that's coming up. It's always hard when this report was up to sort of the end of December, but we're now nearly in March, so some things are sort of in play. What I did want to talk to in a little bit more detail is, so in this report you also received a financial 6-month update. Happy to take some questions on this, but I just wanted to make a couple of points that we're still working with Doyle's around getting the right combination of how things are reported. So you will see in this report, or you might not have, and I might be pointing out something that's that wasn't obvious, but you'll see in the income that you've got like your WDC, which is your funding, and you've still got the STEP funding, which isn't WDC income in that segment reporting. So it's not 100% accurate in terms of where the district council income versus expenditures at, and then you'll see a list of other income below. So in the next report we're getting things like that tidied up, but yeah, it's just been a bit of back and forth, obviously as you can imagine, between having two sites and two sort of income expenditure pieces from council plus having a variety of other sources of income. We just have to make sure that it's clean so that everyone understands our overall position, but that you can also be really clear on the position from a council funding point of view. So I just wanted to point that out, and there are a few timing pieces in there that it's always going to make it a little bit difficult. So for example, you'll see the commission line and the eyesight is really low, the target's for 80k, but we do have, how it works is we get income from sales, and then we also have to do a payout back to the operators, which they invoice us for, and obviously summer's the busy season, so a lot of that lags massively, so we don't often get a very clear picture until like Q4 with where that's tracking. So if you just had questions around that, it's not as clear cut as that income coming in straight as income. We have to do a bit of maths around how it's commissioned. Just under the events funding since the report was done, and now we've received another 120k from MB. So there's a few discrepancies. It's mainly all around timing. But I guess what I'd like to reassure you is that our overall position, we're comfortable with that. We're tracking, as we'd be expected at the 6-month point. I think in total we're sort of looking at about 100k underspend at the moment, but I don't like to call it that because, as to the points that I've made, it's there's sort of assumptions that have to be made and some variables that come in. So the Q4 is the more accurate position we get. What else did I want to make on that? That's sort of a overview of just sort of like disclaimers with that, but I'm happy to take any other questions. And obviously it's a work in progress, and potentially as a CCO committee, and there's many of you, I know there's a few actual appointed and everyone else is invited, but if there's also a bit of back and forth around what the CCO committee might want to receive in terms of financial report, I guess this is our opportunity to work on that as we progress moving forward as well. So I'm happy to work maybe offline through the chair if that's feedback we get after that in a more appropriate way. Cool.
Right, thanks Hannah. I'll hand it over for any questions. Helen, you've got
Thank you. Thanks very much. Can I just note that you use quite a lot of abbreviations in your report, and for a lot of new councillors, plus the general public, they might find that really difficult. And even I have to think, who's that? What's SL Creative? Well, I figured it out. But, it's sort of a barrier to reading the report. I've got too many questions, really, lots of small ones, so I'll just stick to the big ones. The city design badge, look, it's a great idea. It just seems to take a long time to get into development from the time that it started. I mean, it's probably nothing to comment on, but, it's taking a long time.
Yeah, we have had, I think the biggest thing for us is we want this to be a really inclusive process and make sure that it incorporates, in particular, the design element that are from a Māori perspective. And so we have a working group on that at the moment, and we actually just in the team meeting this morning discussed that. Yes, people want it now and they want this immediate thing, but actually in terms of what we want it to be and the process in which that's appropriate to go through to get there, it's more important that we get this part right. So do know that it's in progress, that it's probably 90% there, but that 10% is the piece that we really need to make sure we have right before we go loud with it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. You're currently still managing the Main Street contract. I didn't know you were. Is that just the marketing part or what?
So we've since this report's been written, we've worked with council on what will happen there. So basically we've, it's been mainly orientated around marketing, but also there's a component of like business development that Main Street do. So originally we had it set up so that it was more about ensuring that we're not duplicating and, we've got role clarity and that we're actually leveraging off each other. So we sort of have a monthly catch up with a shared set of outcomes or agreements with Main Street, but all the financial stuff sits with council. But as of the next financial year, it will all sit back with council, and we'll just maintain it as a relationship more than a contract as such.
Oh. So there was a contract where I just don't understand that, because I don't think there was, obviously you want a strong relationship with Main Street because there's some commonalities, but there was an actual contract for you to deliver some services or something?
Yeah, it's probably getting a bit operational, but it was about the operational outcomes of Main Street more than us doing things for Main Street.
Okay, I'll leave it. The SL Creative has taken on an additional pot of funding to action around the Music Action Plan on behalf of council. What do you mean by an additional pot of money?
So it's a separate service level agreement on top of the core funding we get from council as Whanganui Partners. So I did bullet point, and that one's relatively new. I've tried to actually separate out that in this report to show there are a few different council projects that we receive additional income for under separate service level agreements that aren't part of the statement of intent.
That's fine. I just didn't understand that. And you've said this is on top of the community arts funding contract you have, but I thought that was with ANIC and our backing council.
We still have a proportion of some stuff that's delivered through Whanganui Partners as well.
Okay. Thank you. I've asked for the glass action plan and I don't think I've ever had it yet. And that was something that council actually asked for because it was something that I drove. And so, it just doesn't sit with Whanganui and Partners. And I think we need to have that presented.
Yeah, so it was due to be presented in this February full council meeting because it wasn't just a Whanganui and Partners item. Scott from Glassworks wasn't available. So it's been pushed to your March council full meeting rather than the CCO one, just because it involves more than just us. So it's already on the agenda to be presented in combination.
That's great. You haven't talked really about, I thank you for the report and the dashboards and things are looking great, and I don't mean to sound negative, it's just, there's no time to go over everything, but I'm really interested in what are the risks, issues and opportunities that you're seeing. You're the guys operating on our behalf in the space of Whanganui and the wider region, and we need to know what's going on. Your report talks about the results and what you're actioning based on our agreement. But what are your findings generally about any risks, issues, opportunities that maybe our community is facing? There's been a bit of talk about the eyesight's future. There's been no mention in your report. I just wondered, if you can give us a verbal of anything that's highlighting that your team are coming across that you think we should know about?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, to be honest, I don't want to just talk off the cuff about a question like that because it's a very broad question. You've talked about a very specific function of Whanganui and Partners, i.e. the eyesight, and then you're also talking about, more broadly economic things, and I'd like to actually put some more thought into that.
Yeah.
And I'm more than happy if that's sort of the general consensus around the report rather than it just be activity. I'd be happy to build in more of that type of commentary for the committee moving forward. There's lots of things going on that we could talk to, but I'm also aware that we're invited here to give a quarterly report. This is a public session and there potentially is things that, we need to decide what's commercially sensitive and what's, what we would be happily to put in a report. So, sorry, I don't usually like
That's
deflecting,
fine,
but
Hannah.
I just feel like that feels like something I need to put a little bit more thought into.
And that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I think the way the reporting's structured, well, it'll be a comment, so I'll make comment in the comment section. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. I'll go to Peter next.
Thank you, Chair. In your sector dashboard, those sectors only account for 30% of our GDP. Where's the other 70% of our GDP?
Yeah, so we get these, we obviously can put in everything to make up the 100%, but we have picked obviously the industries that are relative to Whanganui and Partners sector focus, if that makes sense. But so for example, health would make up a huge proportion of GDP that's not reflected in the sector.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and we don't put health in because we also actively don't have a strategy or resource to do anything from an economic development point of view in the health sector. But one of the things moving forward is what we thought we might do is we might keep an environmental type indicator dashboard where we'll keep some indicators around stuff that we're actively got strategy and work around, but we will also include things that you might be interested in from a broader perspective.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, like the service sector. And
so all of that. Health is a massive one that would make up a huge chunk that is not reflected in there. But you're right, that's not this 100% add up.
To my second question, to give a clearer view of the benefits of Whanganui and Partners, can you supply from similar sized communities their percentage rise or decline and the amount of spend of their equivalent W&P?
From the economic development agency point of view.
What I'm trying to find out is that if, say Oamaru or Gisborne or a comparative community, they spend twice as much on W&P as we do, or they don't have one at all, what are their percentage rises? So it'll give
So
a clear
the
value.
question really is about, can we find comparative data from other areas around New Zealand?
Yeah, we can do something like that. One of the biggest challenges is that not every area has an economic development agency. So your example of Gisborne, they have a trust. Their trust is also their holdings, economic development and community development all in one. So you could look at the investment from there, but they're also acting in a completely different way to then just an economic development agency. But what I could do is look at comparative models where it's like this, like a CCO, basically 100% shareholder council investment, and do some comparisons that way. And then the other thing is that I'm really keen with this next evolution of the statement of intent to make sure that there's a differentiation between Whanganui Partners measures that we have control over versus data which are great indicators of potential investment that we're doing, but also we're not fully responsible for. So for example, the NEETs, so the students not in education, employment or training, we could say that Whanganui Partners wants to reduce that, but ultimately we're not the only people, in our inputs and outputs are not going to solely control that, they're just indicators. So trying to make it really clear what can we measure ourselves on and hold ourselves truly accountable for, and then what are things that are actually more economic indicators that have a whole lot of things that play into why or why not those things are successful or not.
Yeah. Well, that would be appreciated.
Yeah. So watch this space.
Right, Glenda.
Thank you. Thanks, Hannah, for your report. Just a couple of questions. On page 11, we were talking about stats again, the economic dashboard. It all looks really rosy. We're often tracking above the national average. I'm wondering, because I'm just not feeling it in the community, there's cost of living is still a real struggle, and there are some businesses that are closing down, and I'm wondering if the 0.6% of the population growth has actually got a part to play in some of these figures that say, that we're tracking really well and we're tracking above average. So if we didn't have the population growth, would those figures not look so rosy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the answer to that because it would be a massive assumption. But I think to point out too, we get data mostly is lag, so the stuff that we're looking at, and even, we've just recently got some consumer spend stuff for December, January, and we're in March now. So, we are always looking at data that lags. So you have to always take it with a grain of salt. And we're always careful to mix what we see in data with, I guess, what we're hearing or some of the anecdotal stuff on the ground.
Okay.
But I guess, in terms of hard facts, data is data, and that's the only thing that we have to go off. But we're also, we are interested in mixing that and combining that with what we do here locally. Obviously, though, when it comes to proving that as such, there's always a margin of error, because that could just be, a small percentage of someone's voice versus, and who we're talking to in our circles versus what is going on, which is why both sets are really important to us. But I do note that, and
Which I guess is why you do your business surveys, right? So
you
get a good indication of a broader picture.
Perspective.
While you put it together with the stats. Yeah, cool. Thank you. On page 12, the business survey development, is that an independent one, or is that done internally?
Yeah, so it's been a mix in the past of how it's been done, which hasn't been great for consistency, but we've gone with a third-party approach this time, and we're just about to confirm that party now, and that will begin in March, and we'll have all the results. My goal was to have the insights that it could feed into your long-term plan workshopping in particular, and for our next cycle of insights as well. So that will be done not by us purely because then there's some biases with whether people want to engage in a survey from us as well. So we will support, obviously, them getting the right context and database and methodology, but we'll use a third party to deliver it.
Okay, cool, thanks. And I guess that will go across all industries?
Yeah.
And, small business, medium, large?
Yeah.
Thank you. And just on the eyesight operations report that you talked about before on page 26, I was really surprised to see that there's an increase. I was expecting to see a decrease in numbers, just from, talk around that it's not being so well supported, but
Yeah, and it was interesting. There was an article around Christmas that was talking about international visitors and how quiet it was, but that's not what our eyesight numbers were telling us. Our eyesight numbers were telling us we had quite an increase in international visitors coming in. So, yeah, again, I guess it's just one location where we can take a measurement. We're also looking at maybe working with like Jury Hill Elevator to see if they could capture some data, because that's maybe somewhere that a lot of people go. So if we could use that plus elevator, maybe we'd start to really define how accurate some of the stuff is. But in terms of patronage, it's been busy, and it's been pre-COVID type levels, which is always positive. I guess it has to translate from a tourism perspective. It has to translate into the operators feeling that, and that might be, again, to your point, where we're seeing numbers, but maybe they're not seeing the numbers, or they're not seeing the revenue from an operator point of view. Yeah.
great, thank you.
No worries.
Cool. I'll go to Kate, followed by Philippa.
Thank you. Thank you for your report and for both of your attendance here today. You've already mentioned this, but I just for the sake of clarity, I want to make sure I'm on the right page. In terms of your projected outcome from a profit surplus perspective, you look fairly finely balanced in terms of expenses of 3.4 against revenue of 3.6. Where it leads to you having a $500,000 surplus seems to be largely with other income that might be tagged for spending in next year. Is that right?
Yeah, that's totally correct. So that's why it's so challenging, because the other income, this income's always just on one financial year, and most of our other contracts can have, like, they might be November, they might be, January to December, and on multi-years. So, that's where it's a little bit challenging with the other income.
Cool, but you're going to be making some efforts with your accountant to actually have a decent stab at what the result will be at year end, because you know what you'll get, if you end up with a $500,000 surplus, we'll be saying we're giving you too much money. So so that's why I just wanted to point that out early, that we do need to, we're still working on how this reporting can be a little bit more accurate and not just all lumped together. Thank you.
Philippa.
Thank you for your report. Just two kind of different questions. When I think about page 14, you've got some mention of your marketing plan developed around the Sargent Gallery, and then you've got Sargent marketing approach to start next May. I guess while I'm a bit confused, I think, about project end and when the Sargent will open on, I'm a bit confused, like, when it says Sargent marketing approach to start next May, it seems very late. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, I'm probably not across the huge detail here, but basically this is us supporting the Sargent. It's been pretty much quiet until recently, but I've engaged recently with a proposition around starting to think about marketing, what it will look like from the opening to the moving forward. So I think two parts. One, there are some conversations now around the planning, but in terms of execution, I'm suggesting that's why the May date's in there for next year.
So that would be May 2024. The opening date, what are we you thinking that it should be, when it's going to be opened? Do we know?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I don't.
Yeah, I know we've seen something, I just can't find it.
Through you, Chair, I can't recall the date off the top of my head. It will be, I think, a little bit post May. The building itself isn't scheduled to be finished until Christmas this year, and then there'll be a period of actually transitioning and getting ready for opening. But I think that is kind of June, July-ish time from memory, but I can take an action away to confirm that.
Yeah, sure. So I did go to the Ops Committee and see that it was project completion, December December 2023. Understand there's going to be a delay in opening. It just seems quite late if that's when you're talking about marketing approach to start next May. And I know it's not your baby as such, but sorry, no pun intended. But yeah, I just would encourage you to keep.
Yeah, don't take it as Bible. Like I said, the planning's just started. It may shift forward. I'm sure that I'll leave that part to the experts in terms of timing, but I'll go back and clarify. It might have just been a tentative date.
Thank you.
And it hasn't been changed.
If I could ask about the Amplify grants, they may be in here, I could have missed it, and I know it possibly is getting a bit operational, so you can slap me if you want. I saw some figures, and I can't quite find them either, but for I think your first group of grants might have been close to 80 applications, and 6 applications successful, about 4,000 each, so a total of about 24,000. Is that, if that's correct? And I guess I'm kind of interested, and I see you advertising again. 2 questions would be, would you just be able to give an indication, because it appears pretty well marketed in our local papers, like what that budget could be, what size of it, and I guess it's more, and then the second one's around this, how you measure success outcome. You know, what is the end game there?
Yep, so a couple of questions in there. One, I don't know the marketing budget off the top of my head. I think what I would like to point out though is we do get a bit of commentary around, you know, ads in the paper and that sort of thing. We have like a partnership with a lot of our media companies, and although yes, we pay money for parts of marketing, we also, because of that partnership, get a lot of bonus activities. So there was a comment, I think at the end of last year, that came to me, and it was like on a 4-page spread or something. What happens is when they want to fill some gaps or whatever as a partner, and because we spend money, they'll come to us and say, hey, you know, we've got a couple of extra free spaces or pages, do you want them? And we'll take them. So they come to us at no cost. So I just want to make that point, because not everything that you see is necessarily us spending money on it. Because of those partnerships, we often do get some nice freebies, which is the great thing about the partnership.
Yeah, and that's great to actually hear, because I would understand a bit of, I think, you know, the public to hear too, because it can look like, for some of us, we can think, the price of a one-page ad, but thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, behind the scenes also have confidence that we do measure what's most successful with the marketing. So, you know, whether we use radio or print or social media, we track engagement, how people have come through that, and that's why, you know, for certain programs or particular things, you'll see more online versus other things that we get better engagement if it's on the radio or the paper. So do have trust that we do think about those things, and it's not just wild spending of printing in the paper and that sort of thing. In terms of the Amplify, like why we do it and the outcomes, I guess, again, this is probably getting a little bit operational, but there were multiple reasons why we did that. Number one reason why it was incepted, though, is that for our small businesses and our small startups, access to freely available capital to invest in their business to grow is not easy to come by. You know, you have to go to a trust, or you know, it's usually comes with an equity stake or whatever. And we thought, you know, if we were to help accelerate a small business to grow in particular and bring in new money to Whanganui, what's the number one enabler? And it was a relatively, I mean, Michael would be like, yes, we'd love way more money than that, than $4,000, but most of the time it's that freely available capital that allows them to purchase something, to do something that allows their business to grow. So our success is measured on that. They put in something, they're successful in that grant, and then we get results in terms of their business growth or what they've been able to do. So that's a mix of both qualitative and quantitative stuff. But there's a range of other side reasons we do it as well, because it's, you know, it's great visibility and a chance for people and businesses to connect with Whanganui Partners that may not have in the past. So you said there were 78 valid applications and 6 or 7 got funding, but all 78 got contacted by a strategic lead and then have engaged with Whanganui Partners for business support, whether that's to be directed onto the RBP program, to be connected into one of the network groups, to be sent down to the back house, to be notified about the chamber or network. So it's also a really great way for us to extend how we have relationships with the business community that aren't just the who we know. So there's a few other reasons, but those are probably, I just highlight those as, you know, kind of quite core ones around it. of course, it's a nice to have, and as we move forward, it might not be something that's always viable, but for this financial year, we've made a commitment to it, and we're happy with how it's tracking.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I'll go to Rob next.
Yeah, thank you. The amplified program, does that attract any external funding, like from MB, or is it all from the bulk funder?
At the moment, it's all bulk funding from council.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. There's some very impressive billboards that I think down in Wellington, I think it is. They look great. Can you just give us a brief on how effective you think they are?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, if you're interested in some of the details in those marketing campaigns, it'll be great timing that the next CCO report will be acting CE Jonathan, who's the strategic lead for the marketing, and he could add in a little bit of detail around those campaigns in terms of how we measure their success, the patronage. Like I said, a lot of it leads back to how many people go to the website. Obviously, we can't measure every person that looks at it and whether they come to Whanganui or not, but we do gather a variety of different insights around the success of them. But yeah, and again, that's one of those things I'll point out. We've been able to go really large with some campaigns, which is awesome because we do get a lot of positive feedback. Quite a lot of that has been funded through the strategic tourism asset protection program. So moving forward, we might not necessarily have the funding to do some of this bigger stuff. So all credit to MB. Over the last couple of years, it's been really awesome for us to have that money to really be able to accelerate what we were doing on a big scale rather than just little magazine snippets and try something different. So the billboards were targeted in both Auckland and Wellington.
So did that attract MB funding?
Yeah, so that was all derived out of some funding from MB, which we had over the past 2 years. Yeah. That unfortunately expires on the 30th of June this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob, and a couple of questions from me. Hannah, have you received or seen any preliminary data on the economic impact of the Masters Games? Or is it too soon?
No, my guess is too soon because we're very slow to get, like I said, even cemetery circuit.
Sure.
But yeah, haven't seen anything yet, but we'll definitely be sure to circulate anything that we do get.
Perfect, thank you. And my second question is around the business-friendly group. Can you give us a summary of the membership? Who attends those meetings?
Oh, I'm not 100% sure on the who, but it's definitely a mixture of council officers and our strategic leads at work. It's led by the strategic lead business, but depending on the type of business or the inquiry, there could be a range of people from Whanganui Partners. But I believe it makes up representation from your core council services, so infrastructure. Again, I think it's sort of fluid in its membership from the perspective of, again, the group, depending on what the inquiry is, but the core thing is that it's a district council, Whanganui Partners combination. So we're really happy I think it was an outcome from the last couple of meetings about, visibility. How do people know that this group exists and how do they engage in it? So we're really pleased to have that on the website now. We've done a little case study of a success story. And we're getting good, people are now actually, this group exists and I can use them. So they meet again next week. So they meet frequently. I guess one of the key things for us moving forward, which I know was brought up, was just feedback. So not everything's going to be rosy. So how do we take, a business or an opportunity that comes in and maybe there are barriers to their development or growth and, it hasn't worked. So how do we also how do we take that and implement it into, are these things that, council can make changes on? Are they things that Whanganui Partners could make changes on to make sure that, I guess the concept is it's business friendly and enables that growth and development. There's a refreshed terms of reference. I know Marianne, from an ELT perspective, has been sitting with that group, but I can't name names because I haven't actively been in that group. No,
that's quite all right. I guess as a follow-up to that, have you considered inviting businesses themselves to sit on the group on a permanent basis?
No, I guess the group at the moment, it's actually about it's an enabler for them to get things happening. So most of the time they're engaging because they need consent support. They need, it could be, like stuff around policy, alcohol licensing. It could be It's generally, not to be too black and white, it's like the nuts and bolts. So a business comes and they're really wanting to do something, and instead of having to go to this Department of Council and then going to this Department of Council and then coming to Whanganui Partners, the idea is that they come in and their whole case can be taken and they have one point of contact. So it's not necessarily like a group where we're getting feedback around growth and strategy and stuff. It's very much like a functional group around how we get people to turn the sod in the soil or to expand or whatever that may look like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe, Josh, maybe the opportunity, and I'm sure David, could give some thought to this, is really maybe engaging some of those business people around what they would see in terms of value in having a business-friendly group, but not necessarily have them sitting there as part of the business-friendly group.
Sure, thank you. All right, if there are no further questions, I will, first of all, thank you both for the presentation and for the thorough report, and I'll move through to their recommendation, 7.1, that the Council-Controlled Organisations Committee received the report, Whanganui Partners, 6 monthly, February 23. Rob is moving it. Can I have a seconder? Helen will second. Any comments?
Yes, please.
Helen.
Thanks very much for both of you here, and we haven't heard much from you, Pai, here. Not like you. Not like you. Look, so lots of information in the report, which is great. But I think council, you're our ears and you're the ones out there doing the mahi with our business community and broader even. And you'll be seeing some risks popping up or issues and opportunities, and we really need you to feed those back to us. So that falls outside of just the reporting against the KPIs, etc., that we set you. That would be hugely important to us, because I think that's what we're hoping, the role that you're taking, and you'll hear stuff maybe before we do. So that would be really great. Whether you do that verbally or in writing every time, it's up to you about how that flows and works for you, but that would be really useful. So thanks very much, and carry on the great work.
Thank you, Helen, and Kate's up next.
Thank you. Just to thank you from me too for the report and attending today. I'm really liking the activity report and obviously the reporting against the KPIs or KRIs. But just wanted to acknowledge your reporting around partnerships and stakeholders. I think is really important. And look forward to you maybe fleshing that out even a little bit more. But great work, thank you.
Philippa.
Yeah, thank you very much for the report. Appreciate it. I just want to comment briefly on and congratulate you on getting involved in the space around the Sargent Gallery. Appreciate it's not your core business as such, but with a confirmed at this stage public 66 million capital project, it would seem to me that the expertise of Whanganui Partners in the marketing space seems critical to help realise the aspirations of so many around what the Sergeant's going to do and bring to Whanganui apart from our own community. So thank you, and I look forward to more mahi in that space.
Thank you, and I'll just finish off by following up on the questions I asked earlier around the business-friendly group. I do think there's an opportunity in that space to as you said, Pahia, perhaps providing a separate forum or mechanism for businesses to feed into that group. I'm just conscious that when you exist in an organisation like this, there is a risk of becoming too insular, and perhaps not being aware of what it's like being on the outside coming in as opposed to from the inside looking out. And so really keen to hear from you, perhaps sometime in the near future about opportunities around that and how it could be developed. But thank you very much for the report and for your feedback. So I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. All right. Thank you very much for being here, and I declare the meeting closed at 12:30. Thanks, everyone.